Document Part 5. The swarm arrived without warning, a vast and menacing fleet that blotted out the stars. Its ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, dark, jagged, and seemingly alive, their surfaces shifting and pulsating like organic matter. They moved in perfect synchronization, a swarm of predators closing in on its prey. The sight was enough to make even the bravest soul tremble. On board the Aurora, the crew watched in stunned silence as the alien armada approached. After defeating the Valens, they had hoped for a moment of respite, a chance to regroup and prepare for whatever came next. But there was no time. The swarm wasted no words, no gestures, no attempts at communication. It simply advanced, radiating an aura of pure hostility. Captain Laura Hayes stood frozen for only a moment before snapping into action. "Shields up," she barked, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Divert all power to the engines. We need to buy ourselves some time." The crew sprang into motion, their earlier exhaustion replaced by adrenaline-fueled urgency. The Aurora shuddered as its system strained under the sudden surge of energy. Engineers scrambled to reinforce the hull, while pilots adjusted course to avoid direct confrontation. Everyone knew the ship wouldn't last long against such overwhelming odds, but retreat wasn't an option either. Earth lay behind them, unprotected and unaware of the nightmare heading its way. Daniel Harper and Natalie Brooks huddled over their monitors, desperately scanning the swarm's vessels for weaknesses. If the Valens had been secretive, the swarm was impenetrable. Their technology defied analysis, operating on principles far beyond human understanding. Even the faint signals emitted by their ships seemed chaotic, as if designed to confuse any attempt at decoding. "They're not machines," Natalie murmured, her voice barely audible above the hum of activity around her. "At least, not entirely. Look at this, it's almost like biology." Daniel leaned closer, his eyes widening as he studied the data. She was right. The swarm's ships weren't constructed, they were grown. Living organisms fused with mechanical components, forming a terrifying hybrid of nature and technology. "If we can't fight them directly," he said slowly, "maybe we can disrupt their connections somehow, cut off their coordination." Laura nodded, catching snippets of their conversation as she oversaw the ship's defenses. "Work fast," she ordered. "We don't have much time." The swarm launched its first attack without hesitation. Streams of dark energy lashed out from their vessels, striking the Aurora with devastating force. Shields flared and buckled under the assault, alarms wailing throughout the ship. Explosions rocked the corridors, sending crew members stumbling as they fought to maintain control. Damage reports flooded in, each one worse than the last. "We're losing power," shouted one of the engineers, sweat dripping down his face, as he worked frantically to stabilize the failing systems. "If we don't reroute soon, we'll lose life support." "Do it," Laura commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Prioritize essential functions. Everything else is expendable." As the crew struggled to keep the Aurora operational, Daniel and Natalie made a breakthrough. Hidden within the swarm's chaotic signals was a pattern, a faint, rhythmic pulse that synchronized their movements. It wasn't just a command structure. It was a nervous system, linking every ship in the fleet together. Disrupting it could throw the entire swarm into disarray. "How do we target it?" Laura asked when they presented their findings. Her eyes darted between them, searching for answers. "We'd need a focused burst of electromagnetic interference," Daniel explained. "Something strong enough to overload their network, but precise enough to avoid hitting us." Natalie added, "And we'd need to get close, really close. Any farther, and the signal won't penetrate their shielding." Laura didn't hesitate. "Set it up, I'll take us in." The plan was risky, sidily so, but it was their only chance. Using the remnants of the Valen technology they had salvaged, the crew rigged a makeshift EMP device capable of generating the required interference. With the swarm closing in, the Aurora accelerated toward the heart of the fleet, weaving through the chaos like a needle threading a storm. Inside the ship, fear mingled with determination. Every crew member understood the stakes. If they failed, Earth would be defenseless against the swarm's wrath. But if they succeeded, they might just give humanity a fighting chance. As they neared the center of the formation, the swarm's flagship loomed ahead, a monstrous behemoth that dwarfed even the largest of its escorts. It pulsed with malevolent energy, its surface writhing like a living thing. Sensors detected the source of the coordinating signal emanating from deep within its core. Now or never, Laura said, gripping the controls tightly. Fire everything we've got. The EMP device discharged with a deafening roar, unleashing a wave of electromagnetic energy that rippled outward. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, the swarm faltered. Ships staggered mid-flight, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. Some collided with each other, exploding in bursts of fiery debris. Others simply drifted, adrift and powerless. But the victory was fleeting. The flagship endured the blast, its organic mechanical hybrid design proving resilient against the interference. Worse still, the swarm began adapting, their systems recalibrating to counteract the disruption. Within minutes, they were regrouping, their attacks more ferocious than before. We bought some time, Daniel said grimly, watching the readings on his monitor. But not enough. Laura clenched her jaw, frustration boiling beneath her calm exterior. They had gambled everything and lost. Still, she refused to surrender. Keep moving, she ordered. We'll lead them away from Earth, if we can. Draw their attention. Maybe the planet will have a chance. Her words ignited a fierce debate among the crew. Some argued that staying and fighting was futile. Others insisted they owed it to humanity to try. In the end, Laura's decision carried the day. The Aurora turned away from the swarm, accelerating toward the outer reaches of the solar system. Behind them, the alien fleet gave chase, relentless and unyielding. Back on Earth, panic spread. As news of the swarm's arrival reached the global population, governments mobilized their militaries, scrambling to mount a defense, despite knowing it would likely be insufficient. Civilians took shelter, praying for salvation that seemed increasingly unlikely. Yet amidst the chaos, there were also acts of courage and solidarity. Strangers helped one another, communities banded together, and leaders vowed to resist until the bitter end. Rachel Moore continued her efforts, using her platform to rally support and spread awareness. Her articles detailed the sacrifices made by the Aurora's crew, painting them as heroes who had given everything to protect their species. Inspired by their bravery, people around the world began organizing protests, demanding action from their leaders. Hope flickered faintly, fueled by the belief that humanity could rise to meet even the darkest challenges. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, the crew prepared for what they knew might be their final stand. Damaged and running low on resources, the ship limped through space, its engines sputtering under the strain. Despite the odds, morale remained surprisingly high. Each member of the team understood the weight of their mission and the honor of serving it. We're not done yet, Laura said during a rare moment of quiet. She addressed the crew gathered in the common area, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion etched into her features. The swarm may be stronger, faster, and smarter than us, but they don't know what it means to fight for something greater than themselves. We do, and that makes all the difference. Her words resonated deeply, igniting a spark of defiance in everyone who heard them. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the crew faced it with unwavering resolve. Humanity's survival depended on their courage, and they intended to prove that courage was limitless. Far behind them, the swarm pursued, its shadow stretching across the stars like a harbinger of doom. But even in the face of such overwhelming darkness, hope burned brightly aboard the Aurora. For as long as they drew breath, the crew would fight not just for themselves, but for the billions counting on them back home. Document. Part 4. The tension aboard the Aurora was palpable, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Every crew member felt it, the weight of knowing that humanity's fate rested on their shoulders. The Valens had grown bolder, their demands more aggressive. They no longer bothered to mask their impatience, and their transmissions carried an edge of thinly veiled menace. It was clear they were losing patience with humanity's resistance. Captain Laura Hayes stood in the control room, her eyes fixed on the main monitor displaying the Valen ship. Its sleek, metallic form loomed large, casting long shadows across the void of space. She could almost feel its presence pressing down on them, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Her mind raced as she considered their options. Time was running out, and the crew needed answers that might not come soon enough. Daniel Harper and Natalie Brooks worked tirelessly in the science lab, analyzing every scrap of data they could gather from the Valens probes. Although the crew had managed to disable most of the devices, a few had transmitted fragments of information before being neutralized. These fragments painted a troubling picture. The Valens weren't just gathering intelligence about the Aurora. They were mapping Earth's defenses, satellite networks, communication arrays, and even military installations had been cataloged with alarming precision. "They're planning something big," Daniel said, his voice low but urgent. He leaned over a holographic display showing a detailed schematic of Earth's orbital infrastructure. "If we don't stop them, they'll use this information to cripple us." Natalie nodded, her expression grim. "And once they've done that, they won't need our cooperation anymore. They'll take what they want by force." Laura joined them, listening intently as they discussed their findings. She appreciated their dedication, but she also knew they couldn't rely solely on analysis. Action was needed, and fast. "What about the power core?" she asked. "Have you found anything we can use against it?" Daniel hesitated, glancing at Natalie before answering. "We've identified a potential weakness. The core generates an immense amount of energy, but it's also unstable. A concentrated attack could overload it, causing a chain reaction that would destroy the ship. That's assuming we can get close enough to hit it," Natalie added. "Their shields are strong, and they'll see us coming from miles away." Laura frowned, considering the risks. Attacking the Valen ship directly would be suicide unless they had a plan to bypass its defenses. But how? The Aurora was smaller and less advanced, designed for exploration rather than combat. Still, desperation bred creativity, and Laura wasn't ready to give up yet. "We'll have to improvise," she said finally. "Use what we've got and hope it's enough. Start working on a strategy. I'll rally the crew." As the scientists returned to their work, Laura addressed the rest of the team. She gathered everyone in the common area, her presence commanding attention despite her calm demeanor. "Listen up," she began, her voice steady but firm. "We're running out of time. The Valens are preparing to strike, and if we don't act now, billions of lives will be at risk. We may not have the weapons or technology they do, but we have something they don't: determination. We fight for Earth, for all of humanity, and we don't back down." Her words resonated with the crew, igniting a spark of defiance in their weary hearts. For weeks, they had been on edge, unsure of what to expect. Now, they had a purpose, a mission worth risking everything for. Engineers, pilots, and technicians alike threw themselves into preparations, brainstorming ways to turn the Aurora into a weapon capable of taking down the Valen vessel. One idea came from an unlikely source: Sarah Mitchell, a young engineer who had always been quiet and reserved. She suggested modifying the ship's thrusters to create a high-speed ramming maneuver. By channeling all available power into the engines, the Aurora could accelerate to incredible speeds, potentially breaching the Valen ship's shields. It was risky, and it would leave the Aurora vulnerable afterward, but it might just work. "It's insane," muttered one of the older engineers, shaking his head. "If we miss, we're dead. But if we hit," Sarah countered, her voice trembling but resolute. "We win." Laura considered the plan carefully. It was reckless, yes, but sometimes recklessness was necessary. "Let's run simulations," she decided. "If the numbers check out, we'll move forward." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Rachel Moore's investigation was gaining traction. Her article exposing the Valens' true intentions had gone viral, sparking outrage and fear across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, convening emergency sessions to address the growing threat. Military forces were placed on high alert, and evacuation plans were drawn up in case of invasion. Yet, despite the chaos, there was also a sense of unity. People rallied together, determined to protect their planet. Rachel didn't stop there. She reached out to former colleagues in the scientific community, sharing the decoded fragments of the modified signal. Together, they pieced together a clearer picture of the Valens' plans. What they discovered was chilling. The aliens intended to use Earth as bait to lure their enemies, the swarm, into a trap. Billions of human lives would be sacrificed in the process, collateral damage in a galactic war that had nothing to do with them. Armed with this knowledge, Rachel contacted Daniel again, updating him on her findings. "You were right," she told him during their encrypted call. "The Valens aren't refugees. They're using us to fight their battles. If we don't stop them, Earth will become a battlefield." Daniel relayed the information to Laura and the rest of the crew. The revelation only strengthened their resolve. They knew now that failure wasn't an option. Humanity's survival depended on their success. Preparations continued around the clock. The Aurora underwent extensive modifications, its systems pushed to their limits. Weapons were recalibrated, shields reinforced, and every available resource redirected toward the impending confrontation. Morale remained high, fueled by a shared sense of purpose. Even those who had doubted the mission initially now embraced it wholeheartedly. Finally, the day arrived. The Valens issued an ultimatum, demanding immediate compliance or threatening destruction. Their message was broadcast not just to the Aurora, but to Earth itself, ensuring the entire planet heard their demands. Panic spread like wildfire, but so did defiance. Protesters took to the streets, chanting slogans of resistance. Leaders delivered impassioned speeches, vowing to stand firm against the alien threat. On board the Aurora, Laura gave the order to engage. The crew moved with precision, executing their plan with flawless coordination. As the ship accelerated toward the Valen vessel, alarms blared and warning lights flashed. The enemy responded quickly, launching countermeasures to intercept the Aurora, but the humans were ready. Using decoy drones and clever maneuvers, they evaded the Valens' attacks, closing the distance between the two ships. At the last possible moment, Sarah's modifications kicked in. The Aurora surged forward, its thrusters roaring as it broke through the Valen shields. The impact was catastrophic, sending shockwaves rippling through both vessels. Inside the alien ship, the power core destabilized, triggering a massive explosion that consumed the craft in a blinding flash of light. The Aurora emerged battered but intact, its crew alive but shaken. Silence fell over the ship as they stared at the wreckage drifting in the void. For a moment, it seemed surreal, like a dream too impossible to believe. Then, slowly, cheers erupted. Against all odds, they had succeeded. But their victory was short-lived. As the dust settled, sensors detected movement in the distance. Another fleet was approaching, larger, darker, and far more menacing than anything they had faced before. The swarm had arrived. Laura clenched her fists, steeling herself for what lay ahead. They had defeated the Valens, but the real battle was just beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, but now it would need every ounce of courage and ingenuity to survive. Document Part 3. The uneasy alliance between humanity and the Valens continued, but the tension aboard the Aurora grew thicker with each passing day. Captain Laura Hayes kept her crew focused on their tasks, but she could see the strain in their faces. No one trusted the Valens, not completely. The alien ship loomed nearby, its shimmering surface reflecting the faint light of distant stars. It was beautiful, almost mesmerizing, but there was something unsettling about it, as though it hid secrets behind its polished exterior. Daniel Harper spent hours analyzing the data they had gathered from the Valens. He worked alongside Natalie Brooks, who was equally determined to uncover the truth. Together, they pored over every transmission, every piece of information the aliens had shared. But the more they learned, the more questions arose. The Valens claimed to be refugees fleeing a galactic war, yet their descriptions of the conflict were vague and contradictory. They spoke of their enemies, the Swarm, with a mix of fear and disdain, but refused to provide any concrete details about them. "They're hiding something," Daniel muttered one evening as he stared at his monitor. "They talk about the Swarm like it's this unstoppable force, but they won't tell us what it actually is, or why it's after them." Natalie nodded, her green eyes narrowed in thought. "And why are they so interested in Earth? If they're just looking for safe passage, why not go somewhere else? There are plenty of uninhabited systems out here." Laura joined them in the control room, having overheard their conversation. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her expression grim. "I've been thinking the same thing," she admitted. "Their story doesn't add up. In the way they position their ship, it's like they're keeping us boxed in." The crew had noticed it too. The Valen vessel always stayed between the Aurora and Earth, effectively cutting off any direct line of communication or escape. It was subtle, but deliberate. Laura had tried to maneuver the Aurora into different positions, testing the boundaries of their arrangement. But the Valens always adjusted their course to maintain their blockade. Despite these suspicions, the Valens continued to share knowledge with the humans. They provided blueprints for advanced technology, including energy-efficient propulsion systems and medical devices capable of accelerating healing. At first glance, these gifts seemed generous, even revolutionary. But as Daniel and Natalie examined the designs, they discovered tiny inconsistencies that suggested the technology might not work as intended. "They're feeding us bad information," Daniel said, frustration evident in his voice. "If we built these systems without double-checking, they could fail catastrophically," Natalie agreed. "Or worse, they could sabotage us. Maybe that's their plan, to make us dependent on their tech, then pull the rug out from under us when it's too late." Laura frowned, considering the implications. "We need to test everything they give us before we use it, and we need to keep sending warnings back to Earth. Hopefully, someone there will listen." Back on Earth, the situation was becoming increasingly tense. News of the Valen's arrival had spread quickly, sparking both excitement and fear among the global population. Governments scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings to decide how to handle the unprecedented event. Some leaders argued that humanity should embrace the opportunity to learn from an advanced civilization, while others warned of the potential dangers. Debates raged in parliaments and assemblies, with no clear consensus emerging. Meanwhile, journalist Rachel Moore was digging deeper. She had always been skeptical of official narratives, preferring to chase down leads and uncover the truth herself. When she heard rumors of classified documents related to the Valens, she knew she had to investigate. Her instincts told her that the government wasn't telling the whole story, and she was determined to find out why. Rachel tracked down Daniel Harper's contact information through mutual acquaintances at the observatory where the signal had first been detected. Reaching out to him felt like a long shot, but she hoped he might shed some light on the situation. To her surprise, he responded almost immediately, agreeing to speak with her in private. Their conversation took place over a secure video link, with Daniel speaking softly to avoid being overheard by the rest of the crew. He explained the growing concerns aboard the Aurora, sharing details about the Valen's behavior and the discrepancies in their information. Rachel listened intently, taking notes and asking pointed questions. "You think they're using us, Rachel said when Daniel finished. That they're not really refugees at all. I don't know what they are, Daniel replied. But I know they're not telling us everything, and whatever their real intentions are, they're dangerous. Rachel promised to look into the matter further, using her connections to dig up anything she could find. In return, Daniel asked her to help spread the warning encoded in the modified signal. If anyone on Earth can decode it, they need to take it seriously, he urged. We don't have much time. As Rachel worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, tensions aboard the Aurora reached a breaking point. The Valens began making demands, insisting that humanity grant them unrestricted access to Earth's resources. They claimed it was necessary for their survival, but their tone grew increasingly aggressive. When Laura refused to comply without further negotiations, the aliens reacted with thinly veiled hostility. You misunderstand our needs, the Valen voice said during one particularly heated exchange. Your cooperation is not optional. Without our guidance, your species will remain insignificant. Laura clenched her fists, struggling to keep her emotions in check. We are not insignificant, she shot back, and we won't blindly follow your orders. If you want our help, you'll have to earn it. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving an ominous silence in its wake. The crew braced themselves for retaliation, but the Valens did nothing, at least, not right away. Instead, they sent another message, this time accompanied by images. The pictures showed massive fleets of ships, weapons bristling with destructive power. The message was clear. If humanity resisted, the consequences would be severe. Fear rippled through the Aurora. Some crew members argued that they should surrender, believing resistance to be futile. Others insisted on fighting back, no matter the odds. Laura found herself caught in the middle, torn between protecting her crew and standing up to the Valens. She called an emergency meeting to discuss their options. We can't trust them, Natalie said firmly. If we give in now, they'll only ask for more. We need to find a way to stop them. But how? Asked one of the engineers, his voice trembling. Their technology is far beyond ours. We're outmatched. Maybe not entirely, Daniel interjected. We've been studying their systems. If we can exploit their weaknesses, we might have a chance. Laura nodded slowly, considering the idea. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Let's focus on finding vulnerabilities in their defenses. In the meantime, we keep sending warnings back to Earth. If we can alert them in time, maybe they can prepare for the worst. The crew threw themselves into the task, working around the clock to analyze the Valens technology. They discovered that the alien ship relied heavily on a centralized power core, which appeared to be its primary source of energy. Disabling it could cripple the vessel, but getting close enough to do so would be nearly impossible. As they devised a plan, the Valens made their next move. Without warning, they launched a series of probes toward the Aurora, claiming they were meant to assist with repairs, but the crew recognized them for what they truly were, spies. Each probe carried sensors capable of scanning the human ship's systems, gathering intelligence that could be used against them. Laura ordered the crew to disable the probes before they could transmit their findings back to the Valen ship. It was a risky operation, requiring precise maneuvers and split-second timing. Tensions ran high as the crew worked together, their movements coordinated with military precision. One by one, the probes were neutralized, but not without cost. Several sections of the Aurora sustained damage, forcing the engineers to work overtime to keep the ship operational. Through it all, Laura remained steadfast, her leadership inspiring those around her. She reminded the crew of their mission and the importance of staying united. We're not just fighting for ourselves, she told them. We're fighting for everyone back home. If we fall, humanity falls with us. Her words resonated deeply, strengthening their resolve. Despite the odds stacked against them, the crew refused to give up. They knew the battle ahead would be difficult, perhaps even hopeless, but they also knew that surrender was not an option. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galaxy, and it would not be pushed back into the shadows. Unbeknownst to the Aurora, their warnings were beginning to reach Earth. Decoded fragments of the modified signal sparked alarm among certain circles, prompting covert preparations for the possibility of invasion. While the full extent of the threat remained unclear, one thing was certain: humanity was no longer alone in the universe. And whether they liked it or not, they were about to face their greatest challenge yet. Document Part 2. The journey aboard the Aurora was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. For weeks, the spacecraft drifted through the vast emptiness of space, guided by the mysterious signal that pulsed steadily from its destination, near Proxima Centauri. Inside the ship, life followed a strict routine. The crew worked in shifts, maintaining systems, analyzing data, and preparing for whatever lay ahead. Despite the monotony, tension simmered beneath the surface. Everyone knew they were heading into uncharted territory, and no one could predict what they might find. Daniel Harper spent most of his time in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He often found himself wondering about the beings. Who had sent the signal? Were they friendly, hostile, or something entirely beyond human comprehension? Natalie Brooks joined him occasionally, her sharp mind always working to piece together the fragments of information they'd gathered so far. Together, they reviewed the decoded sequences, searching for hidden meanings or overlooked details. But the more they studied, the more questions arose. Captain Laura Hayes, the commanding officer of the Aurora, kept a close eye on her crew. She was a woman of few words, but immense presence, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through people. Her leadership style was calm yet firm, earning her respect from everyone aboard. Laura understood the weight of their mission and the responsibility resting on her shoulders. If things went wrong, it would be her decisions that determined whether they lived or died. As the days turned into weeks, the signal grew stronger. It wasn't just a series of pulses anymore. Embedded within it were faint traces of what sounded like speech. At first, the voices were distorted, almost mechanical. But as the Aurora drew closer to its destination, they became clearer. Natalie worked tirelessly to isolate and translate the sounds, using software designed to interpret unknown languages. What she discovered sent chills down her spine. "They're speaking English," she said one evening, her voice trembling slightly, as she addressed Daniel and Laura in the control room. "At least, it sounds like English." "That's impossible," Daniel replied, frowning. "How could they know our language?" "I don't think they do," Natalie explained. "It's more like they're mimicking it, like they've been listening to us for a long time." Laura crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "What are they saying?" Natalie hesitated before answering. "So far, just 2 words. You are? You are?" Laura repeated, raising an eyebrow. "That's all, for now," Natalie admitted. "But if we keep following the signal, I think we'll hear more." The revelation sparked a heated debate among the crew. Some believed the message was a trick, a way to lure them into a trap. Others argued that it was proof of intelligent life trying to communicate. Whatever the case, there was no turning back. The coordinates led them to a specific location, deep in space, where a massive object loomed against the backdrop of stars. When the Aurora finally arrived, the sight took everyone's breath away. Suspended in the void was a colossal alien vessel, its shape unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was sleek and angular, with surfaces that shimmered like liquid metal under the light of distant suns. The ship dwarfed the Aurora, making it seem insignificant by comparison. As the crew stared in awe, the signal abruptly shifted. This time, the words came through loud and clear, echoing in perfect English. "You are not alone." The voice was calm and measured, devoid of emotion, yet it carried an undeniable authority, as though the speaker knew exactly how much those 4 words would impact the listeners. Silence fell over the Aurora as the crew processed what they had just heard. No one moved. No one spoke. The weight of the moment pressed down on them like a physical force. Laura broke the silence first. "Open a channel," she ordered, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let's talk to them." Natalie nodded and quickly adjusted the communication system. After a few tense moments, a response came through. The same voice spoke again, this time with a hint of curiosity. "We have awaited your arrival. We are the Valens." "Who or what are the Valens?" Daniel whispered to Natalie, his brow furrowed in thought. Before she could answer, Laura stepped forward, addressing the voice directly. "This is Captain Laura Hayes of the human spacecraft Aurora. We received your signal and followed it here. Who are you, and why have you contacted us?" There was a pause, as if the Valens were considering their response. Then the voice resumed. "We are explorers, much like yourselves. Our home has been lost to conflict, and we seek refuge among the stars. Your species shows promise. Perhaps we can assist each other." Assist each other. The phrase raised more questions than answers. Laura exchanged a glance with Daniel and Natalie, silently seeking their input. Both looked uneasy, their instincts telling them to proceed with caution. Still, they couldn't ignore the potential benefits of forming an alliance with an advanced civilization. "What kind of assistance are you offering?" Laura asked, choosing her words carefully. "We possess knowledge and technology far beyond your current capabilities," the Valen voice replied. "In exchange, we ask only for safe passage through your solar system and temporary access to your resources." The offer sounded generous, almost too good to be true, but Laura wasn't ready to trust them just yet. "Why come to us now? Didn't you contact us sooner?" Another pause. When the Valens answered, their tone shifted slightly, becoming colder. "Your development was insufficient until recently. Now, you are ready." The implication hung heavy in the air. Humanity had been watched and judged for years, perhaps centuries. The idea was both thrilling and unsettling. Laura thanked the Valens for their explanation and ended the transmission, signaling for the crew to regroup in the main conference room. Once everyone was seated, the discussion began. Opinions varied widely. Some crew members believed the Valens were genuine in their intentions, while others suspected ulterior motives. Natalie voiced her concerns openly. "They knew our language," she reminded them. "That means they've been studying us for a long time. And if they've been watching us, why didn't they intervene during our wars or crises? Why wait until now?" "Maybe they didn't care until they needed something," Daniel suggested. "Or maybe they're testing us, seeing how we react." Laura listened carefully, weighing every argument. In the end, she made the decision to maintain communication with the Valens, but remain cautious. "We'll cooperate for now," she announced. "But we won't lower our guard. Keep running scans on their ship, and document everything they say or do. If they make even the slightest move that feels off, we pull back immediately." Over the next several days, the Aurora stayed within range of the Valen vessel, exchanging information and learning more about their supposed allies. The Valens described themselves as refugees, fleeing a galactic war against an enemy known only as the Swarm. They claimed the Swarm was relentless, destroying everything in its path, and begged humanity to help them avoid detection. While their stories seemed plausible, certain inconsistencies gnawed at Laura's instincts. One night, as the rest of the crew slept, Laura sat alone in the control room, replaying recordings of the Valens' transmissions. Something about their tone bothered her. It wasn't hostile, exactly, but there was an underlying arrogance, a sense that they viewed humans as inferior beings. She replayed one particular segment repeatedly, focusing on the way they referred to Earth as a promising outpost, rather than a planet inhabited by sentient life. Her suspicions deepened when she noticed subtle changes in the Valen ship's behavior. Its position relative to the Aurora shifted slightly, placing it between the human vessel and Earth. It was a defensive maneuver, designed to block any attempt to retreat. Laura's heart sank as realization dawned. The Valens weren't refugees seeking refuge, they were scouts gathering intelligence. She woke Daniel and Natalie immediately, sharing her findings with them. Both agreed that the situation was far more dangerous than they had initially realized. If they're planning something, we need to warn Earth, Daniel said urgently. But how do we get the message past them? Natalie's eyes narrowed. As an idea formed, we can encode it in the signal they're sending us. Reverse engineer their own technology to send a hidden message back home. It was risky, but it might work. Working together, the three devised a plan to embed a warning within the Valens transmissions without alerting them, using the ship's communication array. They subtly altered the frequency modulation, embedding a simple yet urgent message. Beware the Valens. They are not who they claim to be. As the modified signal traveled toward Earth, Laura felt a mix of hope and dread. If their message reached the right people, humanity might have a chance to prepare for whatever the Valens had planned. But if the aliens discovered the deception, the consequences could be catastrophic. For now, the Aurora remained trapped in a delicate dance with the Valen vessel, caught between curiosity and caution. Every interaction brought new insights and new dangers. Humanity had taken its first step into the galactic stage, unaware that the spotlight shining on them came with strings attached. And as the days passed, it became increasingly clear that the Valens' true intentions were far darker than anyone had imagined. Document Part 1. In a quiet corner of the universe, far beyond the reach of Earth's most powerful telescopes, something unusual happened. It was not loud or flashy, but it carried a weight that would soon ripple across humanity and shake the very foundations of their understanding of existence. The event began in a small, unassuming observatory located on the outskirts of Chile's Atacama Desert. This place, chosen for its clear skies and minimal light pollution, housed some of the most advanced instruments ever built by human hands. Daniel Harper sat hunched over his desk, staring at rows of data displayed on multiple monitors. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and his glasses had slipped down his nose as he leaned closer to the screen. Daniel wasn't one for grand gestures or dramatic speeches. He preferred numbers and patterns, the kind of work that required patience and precision. For years, he had dedicated his life to searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth, though many dismissed his efforts as wishful thinking. But today, everything changed. On the other side of the room, Natalie Brooks stood with her arms crossed, watching him intently. She was younger than Daniel, with sharp green eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that often caught people off guard. Her expertise lay in linguistics, specifically deciphering languages that didn't follow traditional rules. While Daniel hunted for signals among the stars, Natalie waited patiently, ready to step in if they found anything worth analyzing. Together, they made an unlikely pair, but their skills complemented each other perfectly. The signal came late, at night, when most of the staff had already gone home. At first, it seemed like interference, just another glitch caused by cosmic rays or satellite activity. But as Daniel scrolled through the raw data, he noticed something strange. The pattern repeating itself wasn't random. It followed a sequence, almost like a mathematical equation. Each pulse lasted exactly 3 seconds before pausing for 5, then resuming again. Over and over, without variation. Natalie, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. You need to see this. She walked over quickly, her curiosity piqued. When she saw the graph displaying the signal's rhythm, her eyebrows shot up. Is this real, or is it just noise? It's real, Daniel replied, his tone firm despite the disbelief creeping into his mind. I've double-checked it. Whatever this is, it's consistent, and it's coming from somewhere near Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth, was familiar territory for astronomers. Its proximity made it a frequent target for research, but Nothing like this had ever been detected before. The implications were staggering. If the signal truly originated there, it meant someone or something was trying to communicate. Word spread fast within the observatory. Within hours, the entire team gathered in the main control room, buzzing with excitement and anxiety. Some argued that the discovery should be kept secret until further analysis could confirm its authenticity. Others insisted that the world deserved to know immediately. Amidst the chaos, Daniel and Natalie focused on what mattered most: decoding the message. Using sophisticated algorithms, they broke down the signal into smaller components. What they found left them speechless. Embedded within the pulses were layers of information, complex codes that hinted at intelligence far beyond anything humans had achieved. There were sequences resembling prime numbers, geometric shapes, and even rudimentary instructions. It was as if whoever sent the signal wanted to ensure it could be understood by any species capable of receiving it. "This isn't just a hello," Natalie murmured, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she worked. "It's a map." Her words sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. Sure enough, when they overlaid the decoded data onto a star chart, a distinct set of coordinates emerged. The destination wasn't Proxima Centauri itself, but a point several light-years beyond it. Whoever had sent the signal expected humanity to follow its trail. As news of the discovery reached global authorities, debates erupted about how to proceed. Governments around the world convened emergency meetings, weighing the risks and rewards of responding to the mysterious signal. Scientists urged caution, warning that contact with extraterrestrial life could have unforeseen consequences. Politicians, on the other hand, saw an opportunity to assert dominance on an interstellar stage. Ultimately, the decision fell to the United Nations Space Exploration Council. After days of deliberation, they authorized the launch of humanity's most ambitious mission yet. A state-of-the-art spacecraft named Aurora would be dispatched to investigate the source of the signal. Equipped with cutting-edge technology and a crew of highly trained individuals, Aurora represented humanity's best chance at making history. Daniel and Natalie were chosen to lead the scientific team aboard the vessel. Neither of them hesitated to accept, though they knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger. As preparations got underway, they spent countless hours poring over every detail of the signal, searching for clues that might give them an edge. Despite their efforts, questions lingered in their minds. Who had sent the message? What did they want? And why now? The day of the launch arrived under a cloudless sky. Thousands of spectators gathered at Cape Canaveral to witness the event, their faces filled with awe and anticipation. Among them were family members of the crew, reporters eager to capture the moment, and ordinary citizens hoping to catch a glimpse of humanity's future. As the countdown began, Daniel stood alongside Natalie inside the spacecraft, gripping the armrests of his seat tightly. When the engines roared to life, the ground trembled beneath everyone's feet. Flames erupted from the base of the rocket, propelling Aurora skyward with breathtaking speed. Within minutes, the ship disappeared into the atmosphere, leaving behind a trail of smoke and cheers. For those watching below, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in human history. For Daniel and Natalie, it was the start of a journey into the unknown, a journey that would test their courage, intellect, and resolve. As Aurora ventured deeper into space, the signal continued to guide them, growing stronger with each passing day. Back on Earth, millions tuned in to live broadcasts, hanging on every update from the crew. Hope and fear mingled in equal measure, creating a sense of collective anticipation unlike anything the planet had experienced before. Humanity had taken its first step toward the stars, unaware of the challenges and revelations that awaited them. Inside the spacecraft, Daniel gazed out the window at the endless expanse of space stretching before him. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, answers waited, answers that could change everything.